let's move on to my favorite part of the podcast, where our producer Aidan seeks the socials and asks us a few questions about what's happening in the world. Aidan.
Gentlemen, welcome back to Seeking the Socials. Thanks for joining me again. For those of you who don't know what Seeking the Socials is, it is a segment where I personally scour social media and I try to look for the most interesting, topical, and controversial opinions or comments relating to football which have been taken over the course of the last week. Sometimes I inform the lads of a topic, and other times I get them to pick a topic by choosing a social media platform. Fortunately for you guys, we are heading back to a lucky packet scenario. So on that note, what are we saying, guys? Are we going to Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram?
Curty, your choice, bud.
No, Sean, I was going to say your choice, pal. Okay, I know there's some wild shit that happens on Facebook. I would like to go there, but Sean, it's up to you.
Oh, no, it's Kurt's world. We just live in it. So, yeah, let's go Facebook.
Let's go Facebook, Aidan.
Okay, given that hand flick, we have to go Facebook now. Isn't that right, Sean?
That's correct.
So, I'm very, very glad you guys kind of briefly touched on this, but let's dive into it deeper. Jude Bellingham is on track to become the greatest English midfielder of all time, given his age and his maturity.
I like it.
Is that the question? So that's a statement, and you're just saying, and that's you. You just dropped the mic and you've gone.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I roll, Sean.
Wow.
We've been working together for 5 years. I thought you would have known me by now.
Curdy, do you want to start off with that, bud?
Let me start. It's a massive statement. Obviously, it's harsh, I think, to put those big expectations on Bellingham at this point, but I do see him having an incredible career, and I think that Real Madrid will want to keep a hold of him for as long as they can, and I'm sure they will. I do see Bellingham in the Premier League at some point, but if he stays at Real Madrid and Real Madrid are able to be as successful as they have been in the past in the biggest competitions, then I don't see why that isn't possible. I didn't grow up watching Paul Gascoigne, who so many people consider the greatest English player of all time, let alone the greatest midfielder.
Sure.
In terms of ability and talent, I don't think he was. He didn't have the right head on his shoulders, but he was an incredible footballer from what I've heard and from what I've seen on highlights and stuff like that, and clips. I'm trying to think of other English midfielders. Of course, Gerrard,
you've got Beckham, you've got Frank Lampard, Paul Scholes.
That lot. Look, I think there's a natural bias to those players because they played in the Premier League, and we watch more Premier League than we do La Liga and other leagues around the world. But there is something to be said about an English player going over to Spain, playing for the biggest club in the world, and then being successful there. And I think that, like I said, one day he's probably going to be in the Premier League, and I'm sure he'll be successful there. I reckon he'll be successful wherever he is. But I don't know what that's going to come down to, whether it's natural ability and talent or whether it's collective trophies or individual trophies, because there might be a world in which Bellingham wins the Ballon d'Or one day. Those discussions have already started, by the way. So that's something that might happen at some point. And if Bellingham is to pick up a Ballon d'Or or two, we've said he's only 20 years old, then that puts him in a completely different category to the midfielders we've just discussed, who never got that kind of recognition on a global scale. They were incredible Premier League players, but around the world, they aren't necessarily recognized as the greatest midfielders of all time. When you talk about those, you think of Zidane, you think of Iniesta,
Ginola.
There are a few more, exactly. And the European players mainly. But yeah, Aidan, it's a great question, and I think it's something that I wouldn't necessarily write off because I'm a huge fan of Bellingham, and I think he will be massively successful. It's just I think it will just come down to on how we judge that. What is the criteria? Because he's a technically gifted footballer, of course, but could he do what Gerrard did? I mean, I'm not sure. Gerrard at his age was also just incredible for Liverpool. Paul Scholes is so highly thought of by the players that he came up against. The Zidanes, the Chavis, the Iniestas have all called him the greatest English midfielder of all time. Lampard, I was a fan of, but I don't know if he belongs in that conversation. He scored a lot of goals, of course, and he was successful. But anyway, Bellingham is a top player, and I think that it could happen, but maybe we shouldn't put those expectations on him just yet.
Okay. And Sean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think Kurt makes probably the most valid point in terms of that he's making a name at such a young age in one of the biggest teams in the world outside of the Premier League. And I think that already is sort of leaning in his favor. The question now is, can he sustain it? Can he stay clear of injury? Can he add more goals? So I think the list, there's hundreds of players in the world I can think of that was sort of going to be the next best thing and sort of fallen away, if you know what I mean. So I'm hoping this is not one of those instances. He's certainly got the maturity, and he's one of those players as a manager where you put him on the pitch and there's not a stress one bit. You know he's going to do the job. So has he got what it takes? Absolutely. Is the conversation too early? Yes, it is. But exciting to keep an eye on Aiden for sure.
Sure, and I just want to jump on the back of that, but you were talking about a few of his attributes there. But the most important thing for, I think, any young footballer in the world is personality.
Yeah.
And that's what separates him from other young players.
Yeah, got you.
It's that how comfortable they are taking the ball and giving instructions to players 10 years older than him. He's playing with Modric and Toni Kroos, and he's telling him where to stand at times. Yeah. And I think that that's something that is so rare.
Sure.
That is incredibly rare. And I think that that's what will ultimately separate Bellingham from other young, talented midfielders. It's that personality. And I don't know if Gerrard, Scholes, Lampard would have been able to have that sort of an impact at Real Madrid at 20 years old. Like I said, amazing players. Incredible footballers, but Bellingham is he's got this side to him that I think that will ultimately decide his career, and that's going to be a great career.
Yeah, 100% agree.
And when was it? In August, he won the Liga Player of the Month, right? And I think he became only the second English person to do so. I forget the other gentleman's name.
I think you're right, But yeah, it was his. He won it in his first month there at Real Madrid.
Yeah, I mean, he had a bloody killer first month. Well, gentlemen, thank you for your time. Next week we'll be back with hopefully a more, what's the word, controversial opinion or topic.
that was
fun. But let's get raunchy, right? Let's find something that really ruffles feathers. and just just in closing, let's Kurt, well done for that gun run. I see you're rocking your new necklace these days. There it is.
Thank you.
Didn't notice.
Forgot it was on, honestly. Forgot it was on.
Well done, guys. Thank you. And we'll chat again next week.
Thank you, Aiden.